Welcome to the Orange Park Mall parking lot. Appreciate everybody coming this morning. Before we get started with the formalities, I wanted to introduce some members of my staff that are here this morning to roll out a new piece of equipment and make Clay County a much safer place. Under Sheriff Craig Aldrich is here with me along with my command staff, captains and majors. We have the folks from the company MBF down in Sanford that constructed this piece of equipment. We also have our staff members here that are going to be able to give you a tour that will show you the capabilities of all three pieces of equipment that we're so proud to have now in Clay County. Again, thank you for coming. Clay County and the surrounding communities are a safer place today because of this new equipment that we're introducing to the community. We just took delivery this morning. This is the first chance that I've had to see our new command post. It is a state-of-the-art piece of equipment that has been many years in the planning stages and the funding stages, and after 5 years we finally have it on site and we're ready to begin using it should the need arise. It's going to complement two other pieces of equipment that we've obtained in the last couple of years. One is an armored personnel carrier, a Lenco Bearcat, and the other is an emergency communications vehicle that the three of these pieces of equipment taken together will provide capabilities for the Clay County Sheriff's Office to keep citizens safe in mass casualty events or natural disasters or any other criminal activity that requires a massive response by law enforcement. Let me just take you back a couple of years and tell you why this is so important. Back in 2010, we had the Kilgore case, where an individual shot members of his family and then fled into the woods in the northwest part of Clay County. He was armed and dangerous, and there was a long search that took place over several days. The Sheriff's Office SWAT team from Clay County didn't have an armored personnel carrier. We were riding around with our men in the back of a pickup truck in the woods searching for a heavily armed suspect. Some of you may remember that. The Sheriff's Office in Jacksonville, conversely, had all of the necessary equipment to keep their officers and civilians safe during that search. That really illuminated the need for us to have that type of capability to protect our deputies. Then in 2011, the Prim case happened in Middleburg, where an individual shot and killed a young teenage girl and a young man about 20 years of age, and then fled the scene back to his residence. There was a standoff with deputies. We set up our command post. We called for an armored personnel carrier from Jacksonville. It took 3.5 hours before that piece of equipment could make it to Clay County to assist us in trying to take a suspect who was armed with an AK-47 into custody. We also had to use an old command post that we had that did not have internet connection. We couldn't get a photograph of the suspect so that our officers would know who they were dealing with. Our cell phones wouldn't work. We were in a part of the county where there was no cellular service, so our communication system was severely impacted. So we didn't have room in our command post for all of the people who were there responding to that incident to be able to do their work. At that moment, I resolved that the Clay County Sheriff's Office was going to get the necessary equipment to keep our officers and our community safe. So in 2011, we started saving money from our law enforcement trust fund to buy these pieces of equipment, knowing that the community, through our ad valorem taxes, would never be able to buy the expensive equipment that we needed, because each year my budget barely makes it to cover our cost of living of providing law enforcement services, much less buying expensive equipment. That brings me to the second point that I want to make. These pieces of equipment you see sitting behind us did not come from tax dollars from the citizens of our community. They were paid for and financed completely by criminals, by us taking the assets from them, from their ill-gotten gain, and putting it to work to keep the community safe. So I really want to stress that, because the ability for law enforcement to take money from criminals and use it to keep people safe is under attack, both in Washington and in Tallahassee. There are those who have introduced legislation that want to curtail law enforcement's ability to keep this money that we take from criminals and use it to keep you safe. Legislation was introduced last year in Tallahassee that Senator Bradley and Representative Cummings from Clay County stood tall with the Florida Sheriff's Association to oppose that legislation that would have stripped the ability for law enforcement to keep this money. We know that legislation will probably come back again this year, proposed legislation. And Senator Bradley and Representative Cummings have both indicated they will stand tall with the sheriffs once again. They would have been here with us today, except they are currently in session in Tallahassee. And they asked me to show to the media how important this is, that the community still be able to keep the assets that we seize from criminals. The federal government is doing the same thing. They have also curtailed asset sharing with local agencies by edict of the Attorney General this year. So consequently, in previous years, and you'll see on the handout that we've given you through the Department of Justice, we have shared in assets that have been taken in federal cases as well. That won't happen again in the future. So we want to send a message to Washington also that this is important. We're going to save lives and we're going to keep people safe in our community without taxing our local taxpayers to do that. So that's an important message that I want to get out. The capabilities of this equipment here today is going to astound you. I invite you to go inside, take a tour of each of these pieces of equipment. We have able-bodied employees from the Sheriff's Office here who are very experienced in how this stuff works. I'm getting my first look at it today, but I can tell you I'm quite impressed. We hope we never have to use it. But the reality is, we know that in the world we live in, especially in Northeast Florida, there are going to be incidences that are going to require this equipment. This equipment all has about a 20-year lifespan. So this is something that's going to be a legacy that this administration will leave for future sheriffs, that they won't have to worry about replacing capital assets. All of the capital assets for the Sheriff's Office, by the time that I complete my term of office next year, will have been replaced. Next year we're going to replace our patrol boat with forfeited monies as well. So I hope I've covered all the points, but I will answer any questions if anyone has any, and then open it up for a tour of our equipment. Does anybody have anything that I didn't? Yes.
Has it been frustrating in the past? You know, you spoke about how you guys were in the woods in a truck trying to search for a suspect, and now everything's kind of coming together with these different things that you guys get to use. I mean, it's 2015. How do you feel finally having these high-tech instruments?
Yeah. The frustration, you used the word frustration. That was exactly how I felt in 2011 in Middleburg, when nothing we had would work and the assets were hours away from getting here from other areas. And during that time, the suspect committed suicide. Luckily, our deputies didn't have to engage in a gunfight with him, but we didn't have an armored personnel carrier that would have stopped the type of round that this suspect had. He would have been able to shoot through our vehicles and hit our deputies. So, you know, and even during the Summer Thompson event back in 2009, we had the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement send their command posts. But it was several days before they got here. And during that intervening time, we were working out of 1970s era technology out of our old command posts. And I was very frustrated then as well. And now the issues that we had to deal with lack of communication, cell phones not working, no electricity, insufficient room, teleconferencing, all those things we can now do with this new equipment. So that's a great observation, and thank you for asking that. Anybody else have anything? Mike? Teresa? Well, I want to invite all of you to please look at all these pieces of equipment and learn about their capabilities and share that with the public. And again, thank y'all for being here this morning.